Open up to Matthew 5. Matthew 5, if you need, we've got the handouts there in the back. If you need one of those, you can follow along with what we're looking at. We've gone through the Beatitudes here in Matthew 5. Of course, we're looking at the Sermon on the Mount. The Sermon on the Mount starts in Matthew 5. It goes through chapter 6, all the way up to the end of chapter 7. It's a long portion of Jesus' teaching that we have here. We've gone through the Beatitudes in verses 3 through 12. 9 total. Now there are some who loop the last two together. They'd say there are 8 Beatitudes. 9 total Beatitudes that I see because there are 9 specific different blesseds. But last week we moved past the Beatitudes. We looked at verse 13 and we looked at the command to be effective salt. Okay, we're not commanded to be salt. We are commanded to be effective salt. If you look at verse 13, Jesus doesn't say, be the salt of the earth. He says, ye are the salt of the earth. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. There's no maybes. You might be bad salt, but you are salt, regardless of how you feel. We're the salt of the earth, so it's our responsibility, with the help of the Holy Spirit, to make sure that we accomplish the purposes of salt. And if you remember, as we were looking through that, the purpose of salt, of course, one would be to preserve, one would be to season. There's all sorts of different reasons that we would use salt. So today we're going to look at another fact that's given by Jesus in verse 14. In verse 13 he says, ye are the salt of the earth. In verse 14, ye are the light of the world. Now, don't divorce these facts from their context. One of the best ways to be effective as salt and light are the 9 keys to happiness that we just went through. The Beatitudes don't have, well, we look at the Beatitudes and then over here we have nope, they're all the same message that Jesus is preaching. So when he says be salt, be light, we need to interpret that in light of the fact what he's just said, blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are they that mourn. Okay, so keep all of that kind of in your mind just as a flow of thought. We start off first with the nature of light. The nature of light. The Greek word for light is the word photos. You hear anything in there? Photo, right. It means that which serves as a revealing or disclosing medium. It's something that reveals something else. So when you walk into a dark room and you need to see what's going on, you say, turn on the light so that I can see. That's the idea. It reveals. Now, obviously, Jesus is speaking figuratively in both of these cases. Okay? We are not salt. Now, we have salt within us, but Jesus is not making a molecular analysis of the human body here. He's making a figurative statement when he says that we are salt, when he says that we are light. And it's also important for us to understand a word picture in the cultural context. Okay? That's very important. When Jesus calls the Pharisees dogs, we think of dogs. If you were to ask my daughters, dogs good, dogs bad, they'd say, no, dogs are great. They love dogs. They play like they're dogs. Okay? Now, in that culture, when you get called a dog, it's a big deal. Dogs were unclean. Dogs were nasty. Okay? We had a lady in a former ministry who was from Africa, and she couldn't get over the fact that people had pet dogs in their house. Because in Africa, you don't do dogs, you don't touch dogs, much less have one in your house, because they're scavengers. The same as the way it is in the Philippines. You don't walk up and pet a dog on the street. It'll bite you. You'll end up with an incurable disease. They're not clean animals. So it's important that we understand a word picture in light of the context in which it was given. When Jesus spoke of light to the people on the hillside that day, as he's giving the Sermon on the Mount, they have 2 sources of light. One, they have natural light, the sun, okay, which would be the best. That's the brightest. You'll never see anything in a better light than by the sun. You and I, we carry flashlights. We have flashlights on our phones. There are times when if I'm looking at a splinter on somebody's hand, I will take a flashlight, and I'll look at it and I'm able to see it a little bit better. They didn't have that. It doesn't get any better, it doesn't get any brighter than what you have with the sun. They also had, their secondary source of light would be some sort of a flame, okay? A man-made, a lamp. That they didn't have wax candles with wicks, how we do. They had lamps, they had torches that they could use. But there's no artificial light. They're familiar with the light of the sun, the brightest light possible, or a flame from a candle, which would be a lamp, or a larger fire. So that's how we understand it when Jesus says, ye are the light of the world. Interpret it in that context, okay? You're the light. He wasn't talking about a light bulb because they didn't exist. When he talks of the world, he's speaking of the fact that the world is a dark place. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 19 says, we have also a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do well that ye take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place. It's referring to the world in which we live, our culture. It was dark then, it's dark now, until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts. Matthew 4:16, the very previous chapter here to this, Jesus says, the people which sat in darkness saw a great light, and to them which sat in the region and shadow of death, light is sprung up. You see two references there, darkness, and then the region and shadow of death. This light is sprung up. The world is a dark place. John 3:18. Jesus speaking to Nicodemus at night. And he says, and this is the condemnation, that light is come into the world, and men loved darkness rather than light, because their deeds were evil. So it's into this world, this dark culture, this dark society, that Jesus says, ye are not, it's not a command you should be. He says you are the light of the world. And Jesus wants his disciples to let their light shine. Look at verse 14 in total. Ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Is it possible to hide light?
Under a bush?
You can, right? It's difficult. On a big scale, it's nigh unto impossible. Have you ever tried to sleep during the daytime when you're not used to it? And you lay down in your bed and you think, I'm going to get this room dark. So you lower the blinds and you pull the curtains, and boy, it's bright in there. It doesn't take long. It's amazing when you lay down at night, when you turn off your light at night, and you lay there long enough, you become aware of just how bright that room is in which you're laying. And if you're one of those people, you crawl through the house with electrical tape covering up all of the lights on power strips and stuff. I know people who do that because they want to get rid of every bit of light. Light is hard to conceal. It's hard to hide. It's not impossible. It can be done. The reason that a city on a hill cannot be hid at night is because of the number of lights that are present. When you have that many people and that many lights, obviously some light is going to shine through. When I'm driving towards Washington at night, I can see where Washington is, generally speaking. Why? Because there's a glow in that area. Okay? A city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. During World War II, especially in England, there were air raid wardens. And every night they would go around. They had to have blackout shades. And the air raid wardens would walk around town. And as they were walking past, if they could see light coming in through your window, they would knock on the door and make you close your shutters and pull your shades down, or just turn the lights off, because you can see a match for a mile. That's a lot of distance that you can see one match. Now, obviously, in England, during World War II, the Germans are flying overhead, and if they see a bunch of points of light, they know, that's a good place that I'll dump all of the bombs that I have on board. And they did. So it was a big deal that they tried to hide the cities on hills. Now, they couldn't, and many of those cities got bombed as a result of it. You can't hide a whole city because there are too many points of light. That's what Jesus is saying here, and everybody would have understood that. In Jesus' day, Jerusalem is built on a hill. So, as the Jews, Jesus is speaking to the Jews here, and he says a city that is on a hill cannot be hid. And everyone would have thought, yeah, it would be impossible for me to walk down the Kidron Valley and not know that Jerusalem was there because of all of the light that shines. It's the nature of light to be seen. Okay, that's just the nature of how light works. Its nature is to be seen. Now, again, ye are the light of the world. It is the nature of light to be seen. Look at verse 15. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Now, in a day before electricity, which is what Jesus is speaking into, light didn't happen by accident. You know how it is when the power goes out, and if I remember back before everybody had all of the flashlights, now we all pull out our phone and we do this for a minute and we look around with the glow of our phone until we get the flashlight. But I remember, and you certainly do as well, when the power went out when you were little, and it took a little while to get things going. Where are those candles again? And somebody's trying to find that flashlight, and it was before the days of LEDs. And so you remember hitting a flashlight, trying to get it, and it kind of eventually it gets a little bit bright, and then it goes out, and you're trying to find. Everything went wrong when you're trying to get it. So somebody pulls out a match, and you're trying to walk around the house with a match. When you don't have electricity, light doesn't happen by accident. You have to work hard to get light. And in this day, they certainly did. The lamps, when he's speaking of a candle, it's another word. It's the Greek word lampos, or lychnos. It means it's not a wax candle. It'd be another name for a lamp. And the lamps were small clay pots. They were filled with olive oil. And then they would have, some of them had kind of a little spot where the wick could come out. Others of them, it was kind of a little pot, and it had a wick that floated in there, and they would light the wick on fire, and it would burn. So it's not producing a lot of light, but it is producing some. Now, it would be foolish and expensive to light a lamp and then cover it in such a way that you were not actively able to benefit from the light. Okay? It would be like turning on your flashlight and putting it in your pocket. What's the point? If you are going to have it on, you want to benefit from the light. In this day, if you're going to light a lamp, first off, they're hard to light. They also don't have matches. So they're lighting it with a flint and steel, perhaps. Okay? So they're lighting a lamp, and they finally get it lit. And it would be ridiculous to take that lamp that you just labored to get lit and go and put it under a basket. Why are you doing that if you're not going to benefit from the light? Dads in Bible time didn't go through the house flipping off light switches, but there would be a serious conversation if somebody lit a lamp and didn't make proper use of the light it provided. The idea, I remember my dad, turn off the light, we're paying for that electricity. In Bible times, blow out the lamp because I'm paying for that oil would be the equivalent in that day. It doesn't make sense for us to take the light and then have it burning, but to no benefit. In 2 Corinthians 4:3, we read, "But if our gospel be hid," there it is, there's what we're shining. "But if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost, in whom the God of this world hath blinded the minds of them which believe not, lest the light of the glorious gospel of Christ, who is the image of God, should shine unto them." If our gospel is hid, it's hid to the lost. I've already got it. It would be the equivalent of me having my light that is supposed to be for the good of everyone in the room, and me getting under a blanket with it. Speaking of lights here, very appropriate that we're dealing with that. A quote that I found as I was going through some different study for this, I have it there on your handout. "There's no such thing as secret discipleship. For either the secrecy destroys the discipleship, or the discipleship destroys the secret. Okay? When you hide your light, for all of the good it's doing, it might as well be out, right? If our gospel is hid, it is hid to them that are lost. The nature of light is not meant to be hidden. Rather, it's meant to be broadcast. If you're going to light the thing, if you're going to pay to have this light, you should have it out so that it can be of benefit. We're building a case here. Look at verse 16. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Now we're going to find here there's some overlap between salt and light on this principle right here. The purpose of our broadcasting our light is to bring glory to the Father by the distinction between us and the world. If there's a house where, have you ever been driving through town? I have, even since we've lived here, when the power goes out in part of the town, but it doesn't go out in the other part of town. And somewhere there's that divide where you see this person, the lights are on, this person, it's all dark. There's a distinction, and the way it's noticeable is because of the lights. Now, we've already looked at John 3:18, and this is the condemnation that light is come into the world, and men love darkness rather than light because their deeds are evil. The world is a dark place. My life, because I am the light of the world, because I'm a disciple of Christ, should be providing that contrast. The deeds of the men of the world are evil. They're darkness. But the works of Christ's disciples they must provide a contrast. Now, when it says good works, there are two different Greek words for good used in the New Testament. There's the word agathos. Agathos means good in quality. And it's used to describe similar things. It's not that it's a lesser good, okay? But the word used here is the word kalos, and it means beautiful, winsome, or attractive. Now, you remember last week when we talked about salt. Salt, one of the purposes of salt is to make something taste better. And we went to Colossians 3:21, where it talks about only let your conversation be as it becometh the gospel of Jesus Christ. My lifestyle should make the gospel attractive. Now, we come here to light. As light, our life is to reveal the attractive qualities of the gospel. The good works act as a spotlight. As the light of the world, I am to be doing good works, not to attract attention to myself, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. We are to be doing that so that it makes the message of the gospel look attractive, so that it brings out the beauty of the gospel. Shining a spotlight to provide contrast between the works of the flesh. Remember that men love darkness rather than light because their deeds are evil. They're doing the works of the flesh. But I am to be, as the light of the world, I'm to be doing the fruits of the Spirit. And it's going to provide a tremendous contrast. And a lost person should be able to look at the life of a believer and say, I want what that person has. I want to be living that way because it makes the message that they're trying to share look good. If we're to be spotlights, and we are, if we're to be spotlights, what are we to be showing? Well, we're not to be pointing back and drawing attention to ourselves. When is the only time you ever think about the actual spotlight? When it goes into the wrong spot. If you've ever been to a person who's walking in a spotlight and all of a sudden the spotlight just kind of trails off and goes off, that's when everybody looks back at the spotlight. If the spotlight is on the right subject, nobody thinks about the light bulbs and the lenses and all of that. They think about the person who it's shining on. That's how it should be for us as believers. The point of a lamp is not to draw attention to itself. Okay. We have, in here, we have 8 different light bulbs, 10 if you count the ones in the back, and they serve a purpose. The purpose is not for people to come in and say, wow, I love those white balls that they have hanging from the ceiling. They're just amazing. That's not what they're supposed to do. Why do we have these lights? Not to draw attention to themselves. Rather, we have lights so that people can see to read God's Word, so they can see the hymnals, so that we can talk and interact and worship together. That's the point. The reason we have lights is not to draw attention to the light bulbs, but to make it possible to do what we've gathered for. As the lights of the world, which we are, everything that we are, everything that we do, everything that we say should shine favorable light upon the Father which is in heaven. Again, look at the verse. Let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and talk about how wonderful and kind you are. No, let them see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. The nature of light is to show contrast. In our case, to show the beauty of the gospel, to show the beauty of Christ against the darkness and the unstableness of the world. That's what we're to be, the light of the world that shows the contrast. This is what you could have. This is what the world offers. That's our point as the light of the world. But next, we have the pattern of light. Now, we sang a song that kind of gave it away. Who is the light of the world? Well, we just sang, the light of the world is Jesus. John 8, verse 12, Then spake Jesus again unto them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. John 12, 35, Then Jesus said unto them, Yet a little while is the light with you. He's speaking of himself. He says, Walk while ye have the light, lest darkness come upon you. For he that walketh in darkness knoweth not whither he goeth. John 12, 36, I am come a light into the world, that whosoever believeth on me should not abide in darkness. Jesus is the light of the world. Now, there are 2 different examples that I came up with, that you have there on your handout. 2 different kind of illustrations of how it should be for us to pattern our lives after the light of the world. Because when Jesus was here, he's the light of the world. Would you agree? But where is Jesus now? Well, he's at the right hand of the Father in physical form. That's where he is. And now we are the light of the world. John the Baptist was a perfect example of our relationship with Jesus as the light of the world. Listen to John 1, verse 6. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. Okay, this is speaking of John the Baptist. The same came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all men through him might believe. He was not that light. Okay, John the Baptist is not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light which lighteth every man that cometh into the world. John the Baptist was not the Messiah. He was not the light of the world. But he was the forerunner. He was the one who, he shone the spotlight on the light of the world. He pointed the way. He said, Behold, the Lamb of God, which taketh away the sins of the world. When Jesus came to be baptized of him, John said, I have need to be baptized of thee, and you come to me? I'm not even worthy to unloose your sandals. He was the one who pointed at the true light. Another illustration, just taken out of the physical world, the moon and the sun. Does the moon have any illuminative qualities of its own? No, it's dust. The moon doesn't glow except as it reflects the light of the sun, right? And the earth gets in the way, and here we have the quarter moon, half moon, no moon. We have all of these because of the reflection. The moon is not up there glowing except as the sun shines on. Just so, we are only as we are rightly related to Jesus will we be able to fulfill our purpose as lights in the midst of a dark and growing ever darker world. So here in these verses, and these are well-known verses, Jesus states another fact about his disciples. Ye are the light of the world. Just like you are the salt of the earth. You might be bad salt, you might be good salt, but you are the salt of the earth. You also are, fact, the light of the world. We have no light of our own. Only as we walk in a right relationship with the Lord will we reflect his light into the life of those with whom we have to do, those who are in darkness. It is, however, possible for light to be hidden. It's possible for me to hide my testimony. Do the people who you know best and the people with whom you have to do the most, do they know that you're a Christian? If not, then your light is hidden. It's under a bushel. It's not doing them any good. Everybody who you deal with on a regular basis should know, well, so-and-so, yeah, they believe in Jesus. They might think you're a nut. They might think that you're a holier-than-thou person, but they should know that you're a believer. Why? Because that's the point. You're the light of the earth, of the world. Shine. If your light is covered, it's doing no good at all. Remember, 2 Corinthians 4:3, if our gospel be hid, it is hid to them that are lost. If you don't share the gospel with me, I'm going to go to heaven because somebody else shared the gospel with me. I've already trusted Jesus as my personal Savior. But if you don't share the gospel with that person who comes to do maintenance at your house, you don't share the gospel with that person who you have a conversation with as you're sitting in the park, if you don't share the gospel with them, then your light is effectively hid, and it's hid to them which are lost. Remember, the purpose of our light is not to draw attention to ourselves. It's to draw attention and keep shining the spotlight on Christ. Okay? If people start looking at the person and the spotlight, the actual light, and they're looking at that, there's something wrong. It's pointing in the bad direction. Make sure that you're shining on Christ. And consider this. As lights in this world, we reflect Christ's light, similar to the moon shining and reflecting the light of the sun. Our reflection of Christ's light will be seen in good works, verse 16, which will be the Beatitudes and the fruits of the Spirit. So, I am reflecting Christ's light by doing what Christ said. So, ultimately, our shining is all about Him. He's the source of light, and He's the power behind the light. If I'm, again, to borrow from what we're going through on Sunday night, if I'm living according to Galatians 2:20, if it's no longer I who lives, but Christ liveth in me, then I'm going to be shining the light. I'm going to be providing a contrast. I'm going to be living up. I will be good and effective light. I am light. Is there a cover on over my candle? Is there a bushel over me? That's a possibility. I am the light. Am I effective? Well, that depends on how I'm walking with the Lord at any given time.